look, I'm wearing earrings. I'm wearing earrings. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know that for the last, I'm gonna say 7 or 8 years, I have not been able to wear earrings because I went for so long without wearing them that my holes grew shut. And which is kind of silly when you make jewelry for a living, but I was really terrified of the whole re-piercing thing. So I got brave. I went to a piercing place. It's actually a tattoo parlor that has a piercer, a professional piercer, because what I read and heard about is that it's a lot less painful to have a piercer do it than if you go to one of those places that uses the gun. I so believe it now, because there was, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, one ear was like maybe a 2, the other ear was like a 1. Seriously. And that was just when he pierced them, and then there was 0 pain afterwards. 0! I kept going, where's the pain? 0 pain. I was just amazed. And now I can wear earrings again, and I'm so excited, which means that guess who's going to be designing a whole bunch of earrings? Now, the earrings that I'm going to show you today, the boho bursts, I have to admit I didn't design. I was just smart enough to go, I love that design. And my dear friend, Chloe Minaj, who lives in England, she is also my marketing person. She helps me with all of my Instagram and my Facebook and my newsletters and blog posts and all that kind of stuff, because it's a lot. And so Chloe and I have been working together closely for 2 years. She is a designer and teacher, and she has a company called Pendant. And these were some of her designs. These earrings were her design, and she and I decided that we're going to collaborate on some designs. I'm going to bring them to you guys, and I'm going to show you where you can find more of Chloe's fabulous designs. But in the meantime, I'm going to step you through this project. It will be a free project. There will be a free PDF download on my free PDF download page, and I will... Can I pop a link up? If I can't pop a link up in the eye in the corner, then I will for sure put it down in the description link below, okay? Let me bring you in closer and show you these earrings close up. Okay, I shall take them off. Da, da, da. How fun are these? I just love them. They're simple but elegant. And you're using delicas. These are size 11 delicas that you're using here. So your color combinations are just endless that you can play with. I love the tassel. The tassel trend is still going strong as I film this. And these little tassels are so cute hanging off the bottom. But you could also hang other things off the bottom. For instance, on this partially done sample, I was thinking, well, I could do the tassel like this, or I could get a little fancier and throw a little Swarovski crystal on there. So it's something to play with. And then I played with the concept even a little bit more last night and decided to add some embellishment. And so these are 3mm Swarovski Bicone embellishment instead of the tassel, because I know that this might be a little long for some people. So I was trying to come up with an option for that is a little bit shorter, but still decorative. So these are made around, this is made with brick stitch, and they are made around a solid ring. And what we are using for the solid ring is very, very cool, and I'm going to show you why it's unique. It comes in a bunch of different sizes. I happen to have brought all the silver versions with me, but these also come in gold. There's one size, I believe it's the 20mm size, that for whatever reason they don't have it in gold. Why? I don't know. They've got it in gold and everything else, but not that 20mm size. But there's the 25mm, that's the size that I used here, that I'm going to turn this one into a pendant. The 20mm is here for earrings. This is the little 12mm round, and that's the smaller earring. They also have these ovals, which I think are really great, and so I'll do a future video on how to brick stitch the oval, where you might have to do a little more shaping at the top and bottom to get that oval shape. So it gives you all these options, but let me kind of, what these are is, it's a Bead product, and it's called a quick link. And What's different about this than beading around, say, just a large jump ring or a large, wire circle, is that this is squared off. So it's flat here on both the front and back, but it's also flat along the top edge. So instead of it being a rounded piece of metal, you actually have a little shelf right there for your delica to sit on top of. And I can't tell you how huge that is, how easier it is to do it when you've got that shelf where you're not, when you're doing the brick stitch, it's not trying to move back and forth on you. You have a nice solid place for it to sit. And that's why I really love using these quick links for the brick stitch earrings and the brick stitch components. For instance, I'm dying to do, I like this little size, and I would love to, how cool would this be? So if you used 3 different sizes, look at that. So you do this, this, this. I'm thinking of connecting them together into a necklace and then just doing the littles all at the back. Oh, how cool would that be? And you could do the dangle off the center. See, I just, for whatever reason, this is really, really inspiring me, and I'm enjoying working with this so much. So many thanks to Chloe for letting me bring this project to you. So let me show you how you're going to start brick stitch. We're going to do the first row, which is the one closest to the ring there. One important thing for me to tell you, if you'll notice, let me get my glasses on so I can see it a little bit better. Actually, I'm going to show you on this ring. Notice that the thread shows where you are attaching these beads to the ring, which means that 2 things. This is an opportunity for you to use all of those fabulous colors of thread that you may have accumulated over the years. This is a design element. You could either make it matchy, or for instance, at one point I was going to do this one black and silver and then use bright red thread. So that red would just kind of pop here and there. So you can use it as a design element, either contrast or matchy. But just know that whatever you choose is going to show there around the ring. Now on these, because it's such a light color, it barely shows at all. I used a pale blue thread and it's against that silver. Here, because it's black against silver, it shows quite a bit. In here, I used a dark green against the silver and you can see it quite a bit, but it looks good because it's coordinated. So I just wanted to mention that I strongly suggest using thread for this project. Now, having said that, you could certainly use Fireline. It's just not going to look very exciting. That's all. So when you're brick stitching around a component like this, you're literally just going to start out with a single bead. These are size 11 delicas that I'm using. And I want to leave about a 4 to 6 inch tail, something to weave in later. I'm going to pick up my component. The tail is going to be held upwards, and I'm going to set this bead right on top of that little shelf, that little ledge. Notice that I've got my working thread coming, so it's coming down, and we're going to pass the needle through the component, the quick link there, so it's now on the other side, and then we're going to pass from the bottom up through that delica. So we just made a loop, there we go, a loop of thread around the component. The tail thread is coming out the top and your working thread is coming out the top. You don't even need to worry about tying this on or anything. We're going to weave that thread in later. If it bugs you, or if you find that it keeps trying to come undone, what you can do is attach a stopper bead here on the end on the tail thread to keep that tension on it. But I actually discovered that I didn't need it too much. So then here's where you're going to repeat over and over again all the way around the ring. You're picking up a bead. Usually you take your stitch without moving your bead down to your beadwork, but in this case you need to move the bead down to the beadwork first. I flip it down, the thread down, so that the thread is coming out the bottom of the bead that is sitting on top of that link. Bring my needle through. You can either pull your thread all the way through, or you can pass your needle through the bead before you've passed your thread all the way through. It's up to you. You'll find a rhythm and go with it. Went back up through the bead, and look, now you've got two. You do want to make sure that these are snugged nice and tight next to each other. So when you tighten towards the rest of the beadwork, okay? Out and towards the rest of the beadwork. Pick up a bead. Bring it down so that it's sitting on top of the quick link with your thread coming down. Pop your needle through the component, and then pass your needle back up through the bead. Tighten towards, take a look. You're just going to keep doing this until you have gone completely around the link. Now, people are going to ask me, well, how many beads do I use for this first row on, say, the 12mm size? I can't tell you. And the reason is because even though these are delicas, and delicas are fairly precise, there's a couple of variables. One is what color delica it is. Some of the delicas are coated on the outside, which makes them a little bit thicker. Some of the delicas are thinner. Your own personal tension is going to make a difference in how many of the delicas will fit in there. So what you're going to do, and I've already got a piece all the way towards the end, is you're going to need to make a judgment call when you get towards the end. So this piece is right here. There we go. This is oriented as if I were still working on it. So here's my tail thread. Here's my working thread. I added, added until I don't think I can add any more. I might be able to add one more in there, but let me show you something. If I take these two threads and straighten them up and hold them together so that those beads kind of come together, look, there's really not room for another bead in there. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to connect the beads together, and then we're going to massage the beads so it'll take that larger opening and kind of distribute it between all of the beads here. This is another reason why it's good to use thread for your brick stitch. Thread will have some give and take to it so that you can do some of this finessing. Fireline doesn't really have that stretch to it. So a fireline piece, you're going to have a lot harder time massaging it into place. Okay, so let me find the right needle here. Here we go. Here's how I'm going to connect these two beads together. I'm just going to, without adding any beads, I'm going to take my tail thread, kind of get it out of the way, popped it around my finger, index finger there. I'm going to go through this bead as if I were adding it. So if I were adding it, I would work it so that I were going down that bead. Here's where I'm going to pull it nice and snug. See how those beads just kind of pulled together there? I would go through the component. Here's where I kind of want to come to the back side here. And then I would pass back up through the bead that I was coming out of. And at that point, your tail thread and your working thread will be coming out of the same bead. And here's where you can do whatever massaging you need to do, whether it's, a little reinforcement of, say, a connection between those two. You could go around them again. You can kind of massage it. But look, just by tightening those threads, it's seamless. It does not look like there's any space for any additional bead. And that's it. We got the first row done. So when you come back, I'm going to show you how you're going to add your second and third rows. Okay, so now you've got your first row completely done, and wasn't that fun? I don't know why I find this a very satisfying project to do, but I do. And so I think you're going to be seeing a bunch of brick stitch around various things because There's different things that you can do using different types of beads, doing patterns, filling in on the inside instead of the outside. There's a lot to cover here, and so we've got some future videos ahead of us as we kind of play our way through the beads. But right now we're going with the basics, and let's get to row 2. All right, so when you last saw us, we had just finished row 1, and we are now ready to start on row 2. When you're starting a new row, every other time except for the first row, you're going to pick up 2 beads. So I have switched colors. You certainly don't have to switch colors, but I think it looks nice. Something that really will make a difference in your brick stitch pieces is if you really pay attention to how uniform your delicas are. So this is pretty subtle, but this delica is a little bit thicker than this delica. So I'm actually going to get him out of there. Let's see if these match up better. A lot better right there. That just means that the height is going to be the same all the way around. So you want to try to do that as much as possible. Do not be afraid to cull out the beads. All right, so traditional brick stitch, you're working underneath the threads, which means in between each one of these beads that we added on that first row, there is a thread bridge between those 2 beads. That is how we're going to attach these new beads. So we're going to pass our needle right underneath that thread bridge between the 2 beads. It'll be the one that your working thread is coming out of and its next door neighbor. So that very first thread intersection. You're going to pull down. Notice how it just made them fold over just perfectly. And now we're going to pass back up through the bead on the right. I'm putting my finger over that, but all I'm doing is tightening up, and I'm tightening that as we go. We're going to catch this other one as on the other side, so I'm not going to worry too much about this guy hanging out over there. So that was our first stitch of the second row. It's the only time we're going to pick up 2. From here on out, it's going to be 1 at a time. So I'm picking up 1, passing underneath the next thread bridge. See that? Pulling down, passing up through that bead that I just added. And you're just going to keep doing this. And it's pretty much this simple, but there's one little thing that I'm going to throw at you. And that is, because this is now wider, it's a bigger circumference, the same number of beads will not cover all of this open space. We're going to have to do an increase bead every once in a while. Again, I can't tell you do it every 4 beads, throw in an increase. I'm going to show you how you're going to recognize when you need an increase yourself, okay? And the reason is because, as I said, each delica is slightly different. This one looks like he's an awfully small shorty pie delica, so we're going to put him off to the side and get a regular size one. Under the thread bridge, back up through the bead. In general, I would say on this particular project, about every 5 or 6 beads you add, you're going to want to do an increase. Here's what I'm looking for as I'm going along. See how, now that I've tightened this, see how there's still thread showing right down in here? It's not completely flush. That is a sign that you are ready for an increase. In this case, I think that we can add 1 more single bead before we do an increase. You're just kind of feeling this out. This is not rocket science. You're not going to break it if you put an increase in too early or if you wait too long. The worst that's going to happen is there might be a little extra space showing. So and the other thing too is you'll know pretty quickly whether you feel like you did it too soon or too late, because you're going to notice whether there's too much spacing in between the beads on this second row here. So here, see how I've got quite a bit of that thread bridge showing there, even though I already added a bead there. So this is where I'm going to go ahead and add an increase bead. And all that means is you're going to pick up a bead, you're going to go under that same thread bridge that you just added the last one to, and then you're going to pass back up through the bead. So it just means that you're adding 2 beads to the same thread bridge, okay? So now we did our increase, pick up 1, we're looking for the next thread bridge, which is right there. Here's where you can kind of make a judgment call about whether you put it in the right place or not. So let's take a look here and see how we did with adding our increase. This is the spot where you're gonna find out whether you added it too soon, too late, or just right. If you added it too late, there would be a bunch of extra daylight showing between these beads, but there's not. If you added it too soon, you'd kind of either see or feel these delicas on the second row kind of bunch up a little bit. Like basically like it would feel like there wasn't enough space for all of them to sit flat. But we don't have that situation going on either. This is perfect. So that worked out very nicely. So those are the clues that you're looking for when you're doing an increase. Here's the other thing. Notice that this first bead that I added past the increase, it's sitting right on top of that thread bridge, and it's sitting at a 90-degree angle. Remember how when I said that we needed that increase, it had gotten to be time? That bead was kind of sitting at a 45-degree angle, and there was a bunch of thread underneath the thread bridge showing right there. So those are the clues that you're looking for to say, oh, okay, I'm going to need an increase here. So let's bead forward a little bit so we can show you what it looks like again. So I'm picking up a bead, pass back up through that bead. As I'm tightening kind of towards the other beads. Pick up a bead under the thread bridge. If you want to, you can count to kind of give you an idea of whether you should be close to needing an increase. That was our 3rd bead past the last increase. Here is our 4th bead past the increase. So we're seeing a little bit of thread there, a little bit of it sitting off to the side, but really not much. So I'm going to keep going. So here's our 5th bead past the increase. Okay, now let's take a look. See how that bead is definitely sitting at a 45-degree angle. You've got the thread showing there. Right about here, you've got a choice. You can either add it now or do one more and add it later. But let's see what happens if we add it now. So I'm going under the same thread bridge that I just did, and then back up through that bead. Get it nice and tight. This is still a little bit early to tell how close, whether that was a successful spot or not. I like to go 1 bead past the increase to really evaluate how that's all going to sit. There we go. Look, we do not have extra space there. Everything feels nice and flat. We don't have any buckling, and this bead is sitting right above the thread intersection. So there we go. You're going to keep doing this till you get all the way around. Then you will do the same join between the first bead and the last bead that we did at the end of the first row. Okay? Add the 3rd row the exact same way on top of your 2nd row. Probably a couple, you'll do a few more increases because now your circumference has gotten bigger, but you will add the 3rd row the exact same way. Once you have added that 3rd row and attached the first and last beads together, then we get to come back and attach an ear wire or attach a bail if you want to turn it into a pendant. We get to attach the tassel. We get to do all the fun embellishing stuff. All right, now we get to do the fun part, and that's all the embellishing and finishing it off. You know, I actually made this pair of earrings, I'm thinking I made them in one night. If I didn't make it in one night, I came close. I would say this was like a 2 to 3 hour project. So, you know, about as instant gratification as you get in bead weaving. Let's face it, we don't do this because it's fast. But these are pretty fast. And especially if you happen to use the smaller, the 12mm rounds, it'll be even faster because your rows are so much smaller. Anyway, just thought I'd mention that. Let me bring you in and I will show you how we are going to attach the tassel and how we're going to attach the ear wire. You actually have a couple different choices for how to attach the ear wire. This is actually, I'm still deciding whether this is going to be earrings or a pendant or what, this larger size. I really kind of love this color combination. But I'm going to show you how to do the ear wire and the tassel. There are instructions in the free PDF download on how to do it as a bail instead. It's basically the same thing that you're doing with the ear wire, so it's not difficult at all to make the adjustment, so I'm not going to demo that also. So the first thing I want to do is attach the tassel, and let me talk about these tassels. These are small cotton tassels. They're super inexpensive. They can look a little rough sometimes. You know, the ends here are not always flush. It can end up kind of, you know, they can be kind of kinked or messed up, like, you know, twisted and stuff when you get them. Excuse me. I like to use my awl or needle to kind of rake the strands into place, make it look pretty. If the strands have a bend in them, what you can do to straighten it out, just dunk it in water and then go ahead and do this where you're put this on, you know, like a paper towel or an actual towel and rake out the strands and then just let it dry, and that'll take care of any weird kinky bends in it. The other thing is that any you know, problem here on the end, super easy, just to give it a bit of a haircut. There we go. Voila. No more funky ends. Okay, maybe a little bit of funky ends, but you know what I mean. So it's super easy. So I really like these cotton tassels. You'll see them in a variety of different projects coming up. So here we've finished the third row on this circle. I still have my needle and thread attached. I forgot to bring these set of colors with me to the video shoot. So I'm going to be using colors from one of the other projects. We'll just have an extra special color combo here. I think the green is going to go in beautifully with these colors. The other thing that you're going to want to use is size 15 seed beads. You know, and what's funny is as I say this, I don't need delicas for this part. I don't even need the green ones. All I needed were the 15s. So sorry, green guys, you don't get to play this time. Next time. There we go. What I do need is a 4mm bicone and some size 15 seed beads. So I'm going to pick up a single 15, a bicone, and then 5 15s. Bring those down. You're going to pass through the center section of your tassel. Now it may have a hole that you can find. You may just have to kind of pop it in somewhere in the center there. This case, I could actually find that hole, but in my previous ones, I just popped it in the center. All right, then we're going to pick up 4 15s for this side. You're going to pass through the top 15 underneath the bicone, the 15 above the bicone, And then you're going to pass right back through that delica that your thread was originally coming out of in the ring. Tighten it all up. You may need to do a little wiggling to get all the slack out of there, like so. And there you go, boom. Isn't that a cute little attachment? I just love that. It's super simple, and yet it has a really big impact. Then what you're going to want to do is reinforce this thread path at least one more time. And to reinforce it, you kind of need to go up and turn around a U-turn to go back down. So that means you need to go into the second row or the middle row, pass through one delica right about it. There'll be one to the left and one to the right of the delica that you just came out of. So you pick one of them in that middle row. Try not to get this caught on everything. And then to do your turnaround, you can then go through the delica right next door to it in the middle row there. And now you're in position now to pass back down through that outside edge delica to do the reinforcement. And I am going to forego the reinforcement for right this second so that I can move on and show you how to attach your ear wire. And I think what I'm going to do is actually just walk you through that on this, because you've got a couple of options. Now, I did each of these ear wires a different way. Oops. This is, oh, there we go. Okay. It was just hooked funny. Here on this one, I went ahead and used the bicone to attach the ear wire. So if you want to repeat that bicone accent, top and bottom. Here, I just used seed beads. So the instructions to use both, either of these, will be in the free PDF download at jillwisemandesigns.com. On the loop, all I did was come out of one of the delicas directly opposite where the tassel is. So you're going to have to kind of either eyeball, if you're more persnickety than that, you're going to count and figure out what is directly opposite the one that you attached the tassel to. And then I picked up 5 size 15 seed beads, went down the delica right next door to it, reinforced that pathway at least once, maybe twice more if you can get your thread through. And then I just wove my threads back and forth through the beads in the brick stitch section, that's really hard to say, to end off my thread and clipped it off. I used a jump ring here to attach the loop from my earring to my earring finding. You know, different earring findings have their orientation in different directions. So sometimes you need a loop that is vertical, or not vertical, but at a 90-degree angle. Sometimes you need one that is in the same plane. In this case, I needed one that was at a 90-degree angle. So by adding that jump ring in there, it allowed this to hang properly. Here, where I added the bicone, I did it almost identically to what we did down here. So here I came out one, picked up 1 15, your bicone, 5 15s, back down through the bicone, picked up 1, went into the delica right next door. So it's super simple. Again, I used the jump ring to attach to the earring finding. You do not have to do that. It frequently will help with getting your earring to lay properly for orientation purposes. If you wanted to, you would be able to stitch this directly to your earring finding if the hole on the earring finding was front to back. In that case, I wouldn't need that jump ring. So you'll have to kind of suss that out depending on what project or what specific findings you're working on. I will have a free PDF on how I did the bicones here also. but everything else is identical to what we've already done. So lots of place to play with colors, with how many rows you do, with the kind of embellishment that you do. There's a lot that we can mess with and make a really cool selection of earrings. Because you know, I was without earrings for 7 years. I've got a whole collection that I need to make now. So I'm bringing you along this journey with me. I will have kits available for some of these combos, as well as many other combos available at jillwisemandesigns.com. Come show us what you have been working on too. We would love to see the color combos and the projects that you make from these things. You can find us on Facebook at, let's see, it's a group. I've got a group. It's called Jill Wiseman's Designs Beaders. I know it's kind of a mouthful, but come find us. There's a whole bunch of us. We love to share pictures of what we're working on and what what beads we're using and all that kind of thing. Many thanks to Chloe Minaj for letting me share these earrings with you guys. I'm really looking forward to doing some more projects with Chloe. Happy beading.